initiatives in unlocking business opportunities. Before we move on, I would like to quickly go through the webinar guide. Please, as you come in, your mics are muted. Ensure they stay muted. Kindly ensure that your devices are properly named with your full names for ease of references. We'll also appreciate if you write your names, your email addresses, and your company name in the chat box. If you have any question, observation, or any comments to make, kindly put them in the chat box. Once again, you are welcome to this session. Moving on into the webinar, we would like to invite our host in the person of the Director General of NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, so please give his welcome remarks. Okay. DG, you have the floor, sir. So if we don't have DG on the call, we can go on with the rest of the program. Okay, please, can you share?
I just spoke to him not too long. He's available.
Okay.
Yeah, I was waiting to be unmuted, actually.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. And really want to appreciate everybody for joining us in this very, very, very important conversation, a conversation that is gaining ground globally, and a conversation that, whether we like it or not, or whether any business or a nation likes it or not, the conversation will catch up with us. It will affect us as individuals, affect us as businesses, and affect the way we do things in the medium and long term. I really want to appreciate our very esteemed Mr. Zayad, who will also be sharing with us definitively in this conversation. Thank you very much, sir. Also, Mrs. Zulumba, we really want to appreciate you, appreciate your time. And our own Dr. Eugene, thank you for always, because the Natural Eco has become our critical partner and stakeholders in the conversation concerning ESG, sustainability, climate change, just transition, and everything that aligns with it. I also want to appreciate all our participants. We have just about 99 participants on this call. We are not taking your time for granted. And we also have Laura joining us from the ILO regional office in Abidjan. Thank you, Laura, for joining us. For me, I think it's a conversation that we have decided to own, and a project we have decided to take on as the focal point, as the country focal point, when it comes to all conversation concerning ESG, concerning climate change, concerning just transition. Irrespective of what the government is doing, which has, to a large extent, focused on the public sector without giving the private sector its pride of place, are not also totally taking into cognizance the critical role of the private sector in all this conversation. We have decided to continue in this trajectory, champion the cause, promote the benefits, and also position ourselves to continuously highlight the risk to our member companies and the organized private sector as a whole, the risk of not aligning to this conversation, the risk of not playing along with this conversation, and the risk of not participating in this conversation. While we continue to showcase the benefits, the opportunities that exist in positioning ourselves as businesses, as individuals, in the context of this conversation, not only in Nigeria, but in the African sub-region and also at the international level. We're also proud to say the ILO is solidly behind us in this conversation, and a couple of colleagues from the ILO will also be joining us apart from Laura. So we want to thank you once again for making this happen, and we wish all of us a very exciting time, even as we continue with this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG, for that extensive objective that you have given us, letting us know the reason why we are in this conversation. Thank you very much. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the moderator for this session. He has an extensive experience in ESG strategy and sustainability. He's got over 25 years experience. So I will be leaving you in the hands of an expert in this field. So the moderator for today's session is Dr. Eugene Itua. He is the MD CEO of Natural Eco Capital. He is the National Project Coordinator, elaboration of Nigeria's long-term low emissions development strategy. He co-led the technical team that drafted Climate Change Bill, now Nigeria Climate Change Act 2021. He is the regional coordinator, West Africa Capitals Hub. He is the lead writer, Natural Capital for Climate Finance and Green Growth in East Africa, Chapter 3 in AFDB's East Africa Economic Outlook 2023 on mobilizing private sector financing for climate and green growth. He's a former policy and advocacy coordinator, Natural Capital in African Development Finance, NC4ADF, an initiative by AFDB and Green Growth Knowledge Partnership. Next slide, please. Dr. Eugene is a consultant. Is the consultant of development of guidelines for assessing and mitigating environmental and social safeguard security for the Global Center on Adaptation. He was the consultant in 2022. He's the member advisory body of UNDP's Africa Green Business and Finance Hub South Africa. He is a board member of the Governing Council of NECA. He is a facilitator, Sustainability Policy Commission, Nigeria Economic Summit Group, NESG. He is also a board member for Center for Climate Change and SDGs in Benedict University, Nigeria. He's a fellow of Nigeria Environmental Society, Nigeria Institute of Sustainability, and International Institute of Risk and Safety Management. If you notice the way I was reading it, you will realize that I am leaving you in the hands of an expert. If your hands are not too busy virtually, please use your emojis to welcome on the virtual stage, Dr. Eugene Itua. Doctor, you have the floor. Let's continue this conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deborah. I can feel the vibration here for the clappings. I can feel the vibration here. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, DG. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I don't know. I hope you can see my video. Can you? I think you can. Thank you very much for joining us early this morning. One would think, a number of us are yet, we are at our duty posts and you are still able to join. We want to come. Thank you. I want to add to what Deborah had said in her intro, and as well as what the DG also mentioned, that in recent years, environmental and social and governance, ESG, sometimes we want to take note that we can just call it ESG. Factors have become increasingly significant in business. Remember the DG had talked about, even if yes, from the other side, public sector, not so much is happening, but from the private sector, could we do more? In the light of the society expectations, even from businesses? I think we should. So ESG is a framework that assesses a company's impact on society and the environment, as well as its governance practices. By incorporating ESG principles into their strategies, businesses can indeed reduce their risk, enhance what you want to describe as long-term value, and of course, foster stakeholder trust. ESG integration is now a key driver of business success, attracting investors, customers, and talents. It's a shift from focusing solely on social returns to consider the long-term impact of investments on the environment, society, and governance. The benefits of integrating ESG in businesses, I want to say, include: one, reduce risk and increase resilience. And in this, we would like to say that proactively, ESG management mitigates environmental, social, and governance risk, leading to greater operational stability and long-term sustainability. I would also like to add that it improves financial performance. For those that are already doing it, if you check your books, you will know how you had actually fared in this regard. So ESG integration can result in cost savings, increase efficiency, and then access gives you access to new markets and investment opportunities. What about enhanced reputation and brand value? ESG conscious businesses attract customers, attract more investors and talents who value sustainability and ethical practices. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar, organized by NECA and Natural Capital, aimed to guide organizations in understanding how to integrate ESG in their business strategies, the advantages of doing so, key considerations, and actionable steps to incorporate its principles into our operations. The primary objective, which Adebola mentioned earlier, is to provide NECA members and others with the support they need to integrate ESG into their business practices, enabling them to remain competitive and resilient in the face of changing stakeholder expectations. You recall earlier I talked about societal expectations. There's so much more. Are we talking about the market pressures or setting targets, goals, and measuring progress? It supports you as far as this is concerned. So specifically, it will enhance our knowledge and understanding of ESG principles in our businesses. It will also broaden our understanding of key risks and opportunities. It will help us further to know our responsibility, what I call environmental sustainability, social responsibility, and governance aspects more than ever before. What about helping organizations to engage with other companies to promote positive ESG practices and address their concerns? I tell you, this is also one of the things you will be taking away because we have embedded it as part of the benefits. In the course of the conversation, the core principles of ESG, we're also going to talk about that. And interestingly, in practice, we are going to demonstrate today how organizations that are part of the leading lights, I want to describe them in that manner, how they've been doing this. My name is Eugene Itua. All of that has actually been mentioned. We will move based on the agenda we have to going on to bringing up one of the leading lights in the country, identifying key ESG risks and opportunities for organizations and how to develop and implement effective ESG strategies. That will be the topic she'll be talking on. And who could this be? Just to let you know, she's an impact-driven sustainability and climate action leader from Nigeria. currently leading the sustainability unit of one of the blue chips organizations, and function as an ESCO member of the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance, FIBRA. She's a chemical and mechanical engineering graduate. In terms of sustainability, she started her journey concretely since 2010 with passionate voluntary initiatives targeted at indigent, specially enabled and local community development, as well as economic skill set building in southeastern part of Nigeria. She has been a top voice regarding green. In fact, just to say she has a green voice. She's always fascinated by supporting how to abate organizations in the achievement of environmental stewardship, circular economy, emissions management, and materiality assessment, and environmental and social impact mitigation. In addition to having read chemical and mechanical engineering, she holds an MBA in general management and a sustainable development and a law certificate from University of Cambridge. When it comes to systems, for instance, ISO 14001, she's certified. And interestingly, to cap everything up, she is currently on a doctorate program in international business. She has this message: we all have one latent debt to pay, which is to leave the world better than we met it. So do not die owing. Who is this erudite personality? She is Engineer Lovely Okoye. She's the sustainability head of 7-Up bottling company, Pan Nigeria. Engineer Lovely Okoye, I tell you, the audience here, they are all ears waiting to hear you. Would you want to move closer or mute yourself and talk to us?
Thank you so much.
On that very topic, once again, that says identify key ESG strategy, risk, opportunities for organizations, and how to develop and implement effective ESG strategies. Please, right on. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Itwa. Please confirm that you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much. May I share my screen now?
Please go ahead.
All right. Please confirm
can you
that.
remove this, Debola?
Okay. May I go ahead now?
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Itwa, and thanks, NECA, for this wonderful opportunity. I'll be taking development and implementing an effective ESG strategy, and also dwell on the subtopic, identifying key ESG risks and opportunities for long-term success. So the way I would want this topic to resonate with us is beyond corporate. I would also want us to view it from a personal lens, because once we understand the impact of ESG, even to us personally, then it will be quite easy to deploy it in every organization or any organization we find ourselves. And I want to appreciate NECA for this wonderful knowledge sharing section on the green economy. Thanks so much for this. I believe, this is what everyone and every institution should be talking about at the moment. I would also want to add that I'm representing my MD, Mr. Ziad Malouf, the MD of 7-Up Bottling Company. And I'm so humbled to be given this wonderful opportunity to represent him on this platform. My MD is currently also, aside being the MD of 7up Bottling Company, the current chairman of FIBRA. FIBRA is Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance. And within his tenure, he has launched a Trash Talk Circular Economy Summit. So this is actually looking beyond just 7up Bottling Company, but all of the food and beverage sector, and also trying to champion their extended producer responsibility. He has been very, very focal in championing rPET acceptance and investment in Nigeria, and also facilitated $1 million rPET investment by Indorama. Currently, 7up Bottling Company is on 30% recycled PET at the moment, to also show our commitment to ecosystem conservation and protection. Please, I would want us to adopt these my 3 A's: active listening, active thinking, and then active participation, because, I wouldn't want any one of us to be like the dead sea that will keep taking and doesn't give out. So I would want us to understand this. Let this resonate with us. Let us understand that after this section, we need to be advocates of the environment. We need to be advocates of sustainability. We need to ensure how to manage and measure our ESG risks, and then, ensure that whichever organization we find ourselves, we are doing the right thing. We are adopting the global best practice. The agenda that I'll look at would be first understanding ESG and sustainability. So a lot of people, most at times, will be confused by the different concepts. Today we're talking about sustainability, tomorrow is ESG, another day maybe CSR. What are we talking about? Then we'd also look at identifying key ESG risks and opportunities. I'll give some case studies and also talk about how to develop an effective ESG strategy, and then go ahead to talk about how we can implement it so that, it can resonate with whatever we are doing in the system, and then how to also estimate the strength of your strategy, and then finally some recommendations. So what is sustainability? Sustainability is sustainability a buzzword? What does it mean? What is sustainability? So I would want to define sustainability the way United Nations defined it. Sustainability means meeting our current needs without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. So I would want to rephrase it as development that meets the needs of the now in such a way that do not jeopardize the ability of the future to also meet their own needs. Okay, it means the way we operate now, the way we function, the way we manufacture our product, the way we render our services, the way we behave at the moment, the way we utilize natural resources in such a way that in next generation will also have those natural resources to be able to utilize to meet their own needs. It means the way we operate our factories at the moment. It also means the way we engage in development in such a way that next generation will also have the resources that are available to us at the moment to also meet their own needs. So sustainability is beyond just doing good. It's beyond just being a beautiful organization. It also looks at how do you ensure that whatever we have at the moment is sustained for the next generation. Okay, if you bring it down home, look at yourself and say, how am I behaving? How am I interacting with the ecosystem at the moment? How is my business at the moment? In such a way that even the next generation, my children will have such business to be able to work in and also contribute their own quota to development. Okay, that is how sustainability should resonate with each and every one of us, because resources are finite. Most of the resources that we thought that are infinite, like water, we have actually understood now that, resources are finite. What happened in 2020 in South Africa when their wells dried up? Everybody started talking about water scarcity. It now dawned on us that out of the whole percentage of water that's available in the ecosystem, just about 2% is fresh water and fit for potable and domestic consumption. Okay, that tells us that the remaining percentage is what? Brine is not fit for consumption. Even the 22% that is fit, that is called fresh water, 70% out of it is in the polar region, is ice, so it cannot be used. Okay, so it tells us that these resources are quite finite. We have to ensure a way that they are conserved for the next generation to be able to also meet their own needs. And I take a quote from Indra Nooyi, the former CEO of PepsiCo, that we believe companies should think about sustainability in terms of future generation, not just the next quarter. So it's not just a reporting criteria or requirement. Okay, it goes beyond that. It should be in our DNA. It should be the lens through which we view our operations. Then, having understood sustainability, what then is ESG? So I'm taking a cue because Dr. Itwa had already mentioned that, okay, that ESG is a framework or tool for assessing an organization's impact. Okay, so when you're talking about ESG, you're looking at three pillars: the environment, the social, and the governance. Okay. So with this, you are trying to look at how can your organization, how can your practices, align in terms of non-financial, because these non-financials are what impact on the financial of a business. So for sustainability, you look at three pillars, of which financial is part of it. But in ESG, you are looking at totally three non-financials: the environment, the social, and governance. And also, you can also call it an investment tool. So because investors will always look at this tool to understand how transparent your business is, how viable is your business. Okay, you may be doing so well in terms of the financial, but then what are you doing in terms of the non-financial? And these non-financial are what can have impact on your financial. I'll take a tool, but let's talk about an organization that is heavy on water abstraction, okay? And then because your operation relies on water, you don't care about how water can be, more efficient. You don't care about water optimization. You don't care about, recycling, charging back into the ecosystem. You just waste water because you believe it is so available. And then your host community comes out to say that because of your operation, they have become water stressed. What do you think will happen to the financials of the business? So it then means that there are key non-financial elements that can have a heavy toll on the financial of a business. So the goal of ESG is to capture all the non-financial risks and opportunities that could be inherent to a company's day-to-day activities, okay? So there are a lot of ESG metrics, that could be material to your business. And if you don't look at them and start analyzing their risks and opportunities, it could impact on your business financials. So why are we now talking about ESGs? Okay, aside from the fact that it will help an organization to become more stable, investors, regulators, as well as consumers, in fact, all stakeholders, that could be impacted by the activities of a business, all interested parties, now they are increasingly demanding that companies should not just be good stewards of capital. It's good to be, viable economically, but don't just be good stewards of capital, but also of natural and social capital. And have the necessary governance framework in place to support this. So this talks about leadership at the top. It talks about governance, because if you find out that most times organizations don't operationalize ESG the way they should because there is no commitment from the top. There's no management commitment. And if there's no commitment, then it's just like lip service. So ESG is more structured in such a way that you'll be able to measure your impact. Normally, if you can, whatever you can measure, you can't manage. So ESG will help you to measure those non-financial that can impact heavily on the financial of a business. And if you look at it right, you'll see how, responsible investment had been growing. The policies that are around this had been growing. So there's a spike because, everyone wants to know what is your organization doing in terms of the environment, social, and governance. Then what is also ESG? So if you look at this, you see the intersection where ESG intersects with the environment, social, and governance. Okay, the environment criteria addresses the company's operations, their environmental impact, and also environmental stewards. So your impact could be negative, but then what are you doing anything to ensure that you make it go towards positive? What are your environmental stewardship? What are you doing to ensure that you manage those impacts that you may have been able to identify? Then for the social criteria, you look at how organizations have been able to manage their relationship with all their stakeholders. So when we're looking at stakeholders, we're not just focusing on just external stakeholders. So a lot of people, once you talk about stakeholders, their mind will just go to host communities. But then we also have internal stakeholders. How about your employees? Okay, how do you also look at what affects them, what can impact them? Knowing that when you're analyzing the factors of production, man is the most important factor of production. And then governance criteria refers to a company's leadership and management philosophy, their practices, policies, internal control. Okay, so many times a lot of things go wrong in a system because there's no check on a lot of systems in the organization. I would also want us to look at the differences between ESG and sustainability. So we can see that an ESG can be termed an investment framework or tool that will help us to assess how the organization is impacting on the non-financials. But then sustainability is all encompassing. Sustainability looks at both ESG, CSR, pro bono activities, philanthropic activities. So it's like the overaction. The essence is to ensure that your organization is sustained over time. In the long run, that organization should be thriving. It doesn't just end with you making profit at the moment, but then in the long run, where would you be? Then there are items or levers that drive ESG growth in the mainstream. We look at materiality. That's why a lot of times if you want to start analyzing, organizations will ask you, what are those material topics? It's not all topics or ESG issues that you have to focus on. You have to look at what is material to the business, because those are the places where the risks and opportunities would emanate from. Then transparency is now a big driver of ESG. You find that organizations that are listed, for example, the ones in Nigeria Stock Exchange, you find out that they are always required to disclose. So there's this transparency, okay? And also with the immersion of ISSB S1 and S2, which has been looked to the financial, you find out that if you're talking about the annual report of an organization, it's now the financial statement and the sustainability matrix and scorecard, okay? Because it is beyond just profit, but then what are you also doing to the non-financial? What are you doing to the environment? How are you also managing the people, your workforce, and the relationship with your host communities? Then a lot of regulatory requirements, okay? So as of last year from NCCC, we got a news that Nigeria may be considering carbon tax. What does that mean? It means that if your organization falls under hard to abate industry, okay, you emit a lot of CO2 or GHGs. What does that tell you? It then tells that there's already an emerging risk. It's an emerging risk because if there's a carbon tax in the country, just like we have in some countries now, currently South Africa has carbon tax. It means that, there'll be a carbon budget. And once you go over it, you have to pay. So, but then if your organization had been able to map out your risk, you know that because you are in this industry, because you emit this quantity of, greenhouse gases, it then means that there could be an underlying risk. Then you start thinking of how to mitigate it, how to manage it, and even derive opportunities from that aspect. So let's look at this case study that addresses governance. If you search for Enron, I checked for Enron in Investopedia, and then what I saw was an energy company that perpetrated one of the biggest accounting frauds in history. What did they do? Enron case was basically on governance. Okay, so they inflated their financial figures, and it looked as if they were making a lot of money. A lot of money was coming in. And then because of that, their stock went high, and people were investing. Not knowing that they just camouflaged that, they just doctored their reports and then presented their financial statement. It was as if they were doing a lot of things that were good, and then they were making money, whereas the organization was actually going down. Okay, so when this was identified, their shareholders lost about $74 billion in the 4 years that this was being analyzed, and that led to their bankruptcy. This has so much tarnished their image that nobody even remembers Enron. But it was a big thriving energy distribution company in the US as at then, But that's not the only thing. Their CEO, because, accountability, their CEO was indicted on 35 counts of crime because of that scandal. And in 2006, he was found guilty of conspiracy, insider trading, making false financial statement that misled people. So you see, it's also about ethical misconduct. So when you are disclosing, that's why a lot of people are talking about greenwashing. Okay, whatever you are disclosing, is that what you're actually doing? And that is why currently, before you can say you are publishing a financial statement, it has to go through a lot of assurance. There has to be a third-party assurance that will also validate whatever you're pushing out to the public, so that people will not make wrong decisions based on what you had given them that was doctored to suit your organization. Okay, so this is where governance and even social come in. What you are doing, are you just pushing it out there so that you can make your organization look good, or is that actually your practice? So these are some of the non-financial that can impact heavily on an organization. Now look at how this governance issue, even internal control was not able to track this, how this was able to bring down a big organization as Enron. So why is ESG very important? ESG has a lot of significant positive impact on our fundamental business issues, okay? And of course, it goes up to the long term. Now, once you are able to operationalize ESG, you are able to analyze what is the issues that are material to you, the key ESG issues that are material to you, and you are able to start analyzing them, monitoring them. You can be able to now manage them. And then it gives you corporate reputation, okay? A lot of people talk about brands that are already doing things in terms of waste management, water management, energy management, okay? And they're talking about organizations that treat their employees well, organizations that do a lot of projects in their host communities to ensure that, they become self-reliant. This gives organizations what is called social license to operate. And also it helps you in your risk reduction, not just because a lot of people just want to transfer risk, but then we are looking at For you to ensure that your business is sustained, there has to be risk reduction. Not just a situation whereby you push risk to one side and then it resurfaces another time. And then you can maximize a lot of opportunities. I will tell you that there are opportunities even in the issues. I'll give an example. When you talk about energy poverty, organizations are now looking beyond what can they now do to ensure that, systems have energy. There's energy available, both electrical and thermal energy, to be able to drive their operation. So it's telling you that it is issues, it is actually issues and problems that bring about solution. What happened during COVID-19? A lot of people were, it was a global pandemic, but then it was that period that our organization, because they care so much about the health and safety of people, one line was sacrificed to be able to start producing the two-shot hand sanitizer and home care product that you see around Nigeria, and that is now a global name, okay? But these are opportunities that can also come out from thriving issues, okay, that you can use to better the lot of people and ensure that, ecosystem is conserved, people are well and okay. And it can also help to reduce a lot of disruptions and losses that businesses may have and identify new markets, customers, products, and revenue streams. Then if you want to operationalize ESG, there are key frameworks and standards you should look at. It's not you reinventing the wheel. You have to look at, there are standards, there are frameworks you can, easily adopt and then align and achieve what you want to do. So top of them is Global Reporting Initiative, GRI. In fact, even when you want to achieve your materiality, some material topics, you can get them from GRI to build your universe of topics and then look at what is material to you from the assessment. You also look at UNGC, even ISOs, ISO 14001 Environmental Management System, ISO 50001 Energy Management System. Okay, so this will give you a lot of material topics to help you to understand key aspects and impact of your business and then try to look at ways to mitigate them. Then they recently launched IFRS, ISSB, S1 and S2. S1 is the general disclosure, and then S2 talks about climate change. Then even CDP, a lot of organizations, their investors have demanded, what are you doing in terms of climate change? Okay, in this era of net zero, Paris Agreement, and of course, Nigeria stating that in 2060, Nigeria will achieve net zero, and on the short term in 2030, with business as usual model, Nigeria will achieve net zero, will achieve 20% reduction in the carbon emissions, and then if we have international support, Nigeria will achieve about 45% in 2030. With this era, it tells you that there's a lot of risk that can come out of this, especially if your organization falls within the hard to abate industry. Because when you talk about a national CO2 footprint or carbon footprint, if you talk about it, that means that what constitutes or what makes it is actually the individual organizations, individual CO2, it is our collective CO2 emissions and our greenhouse gases that sums up to Nigeria's greenhouse gases, okay? So it tells you that if Nigeria is already telling you that they are going to achieve net zero, then you have to look at an impending risk. What will you now do? How do you now reduce your own footprint? Recently, we heard that Lagos State has launched a carbon register. And with that, Lagos State is demanding that organizations in Lagos State have to also report their footprint. So, but then if you're not already measuring it, if you don't already have an ESG tool to be able to monitor and manage this, how can you now say that this is where you are? And if you do not know where you are, if you don't have any standpoint, then how can you, positively drive a reduction? So there are key ESG material topics that organizations can focus on. Okay, so on the pillar of environment, you have GHG emissions, water efficiency, biodiversity, especially for organizations that mine, natural resource. You have to look at, okay, even your EIA will be able to rate that, to tell you that, flora, fauna, what's happening to them before you're able to, start utilizing or making use of this environment. What about the living element that were there? What is the plan to ensure that you conserve that? And then with this era of, some living elements going into extinction, what have you done to ensure that at least if it's not totally bringing it back to how it was, but then at least create a balance? Because each of these elements that we're talking about have a role they play in the ecosystem. Then what are you doing in terms of waste management, operational efficiency, alternative energy, and circular economy, even environmental management system? The social pillar deals about the people, looks at diversity and inclusion. So DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion is part of the major metrics we monitor in sustainability. Okay, you look at occupational health and safety of your employee, and even the host community that will bear the secondary cost of production. Okay, what are the social investments that you are actually allocating to them? How do you manage grievance among your employees to ensure that there's an RCA, that's root cause analysis, and then you can stem it so it doesn't resurface? Then you look at the, if you watch the pillar 3, I had to match the economic, okay, from the sustainability pillar, and then the governance from ESG. You look at rates of employment, board oversight and independence, sustainability governance. I had earlier mentioned that if you don't set the tone from the top, if you don't ensure that even your board, that leads the organization, your CEO understands this, and they are the face of this, then it means that it might be quite difficult to ensure that you achieve it in your whole system. And then among the 17 SDGs, you can decide to adopt your priority SDGs to be able to drive that. But then look at ESG issues that can become risky. Okay, so basically, I want to just analyze them in the broad 3 ESG ways so that it will be quite easy for us to understand, because there are different types of risk. So for environmental risk, we are looking at risks that can arise from a company's impact on the environment. Okay, so this risk can include exposure to climate change, natural disasters, pollution, even waste management, water mismanagement. So there could be risks that will come from this, because you are impacting on the environment, but through your operation. So this risk that can come out from you interfacing or interacting with the environment is what we'll call environmental risk. Then social risk deals more with people, okay? It looks at, from a company's impact on its employees, customers, communities, different stakeholders, both the internal and external stakeholders. And this can lead to reputational damage. So if you do not manage this particular risk very well, you can lose your SLO, that's your social license to operate. Okay, we also look at governance risks that can arise from an organization's or company's management practice, internal controls, ethics, governance, corruption, fraud, misconduct. Okay. Then broadly, let us look at ESG risks and then ESG opportunities. Okay. There could be regulatory risks, like I mentioned, a lot of policies, Nigeria stating that, there's possibility of a carbon tax. These are risks. Emerging risks, there are physical risks also, acute and chronic, that can come from, weather condition, climatic change. You have also need to factor that in. This tells you that for an organization to function well, you need to have a risk register. Okay, once you have a risk register, you can be able to monitor and manage those risks, because you have been able to identify these risks. Then there could also be operational risks, reputational risks, and that's 2 sides of a coin. An issue that people would say that there is a risk coming from it, there could also be an opportunity, from it. For instance, if you talk about CO2 emissions, that could cause risk, because we can have a climate change issues and policies around that. But then because of that area, you have seen people that are now moving into alternative form. You have seen people moving into, trying to decentralize electricity, renewable energies, wind, solar, and that helps to reduce an organization's carbon footprint. So that can actually bring up an innovation, new markets, clean tech, green building. Why? Because we want to reduce our carbon footprint. So there could be opportunities that will come up in order to address those key ESG risks, ESG issues that had been identified. And also in so doing, you can have a lot of cost savings and efficiencies, because of course you are trying to reduce your consumption of natural resources. Then this can also give you talent attraction and retention. I would want to tell you that if you look among the Gen Zs, a lot of them quite understand what ESG and the principle, what it's all about. You see a lot of them, they are making choices. They want to move to an organization. They are looking at organizations that care about the environment, organizations that care about people. You hear questions like, what's your plan for capacity building? Do you train people? People also, there's a shift this time around. Unlike initially where everybody was just thinking about the financials of a business, there's now a shift, and it's a good shift. People now care just beyond the financial. They look at how are you impacting on the people? How are you also impacting on the environment, just beyond financial? And then the good news is that once you are able to manage both your social and environment, there's always a positive financial return also. And then there's enhanced brand reputation and loyalty, because people would want to associate with your brand. People would want to patronize you. People would even want to be an unpaid brand ambassadors. So let's look at another case study that looks at basically environmental mismanagement. We had touched on governance. This is a Volkswagen issue. So a lot of you may have heard about the Dieselgate, okay? So this Volkswagen emission scandal, also called Dieselgate, was in September 2015. So what happened? Volkswagen rolled out about 11 million diesel vehicles. So this, if you remember, 2015 was when MDGs was changed to SDGs. So organizations were saddled with responsibility to ensure that also they try to minimize their emissions, okay, all GHG emissions. Before then, we had the Montreal protocols that looks at other kind of GHGs like the chlorofluorocarbons, okay, and then they were phased off. Some of them that have a lot of global warming potential. But then, what did they do in order to beat down emission? Because they are looking at it from the monetary perspective. It's about the organization. What is the organization going to make? But then it is beyond that. What about the people that are impacted by these emissions? Do you also care about them? Okay. So what they did was they installed a system to be able to bring down their emission to minimal once it is being tested. Okay. And this they did on about 11 million diesel vehicles. Whereas in the actual sense, they emit up to 40 times, different from what was obtained from the test. So it then tells you that, this organization was basically thinking about what are we going to make? We don't want EPA to lynch on us or say that we are not aligning, or we don't want them to penalize us. They don't even care about the impact of their action on climate change, on people, because if you look at the two main causes of climate change, you talk about ozone layer depletion and GHG emissions. And these are from what? Human anthropogenic activities. Okay, how does this happen? When you have a lot of GHG emissions, it causes greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect causes global warming. Global warming leads to climate change. So we just have to look at the impact of our action, both environmental, on the people. If we start looking at it that way, you understand that the way we manage our activities will change, because we understand the real impact it has on the people, not just on the system. So what happened? That same September 16, this happened around 7 a.m. As at September 21st, 5 a.m., their stock had gone down from $170 to about $120. And as at September 23rd, their CEO resigned. Then what are the fines and penalty? Okay, so this led to a significant drop in their stock price, which I had earlier on stated. Volkswagen also allocated about $30 billion in fines and penalties to compensate the affected consumers. Apart from that, I always ask people that, how often do you see Volkswagen? Is this that attractive to you again? And what are you learning from this? Because there was an ethical mismanagement, there was an ethical issue and corporate governance issue. And then there are consequences of what? Environmental mismanagement led to where they are at the moment. So let's understand that this, when we're talking about ESG, we're looking at the non-financials that can take a toll on the financial of a business, that can even push a business out of operation, that can even impact you as a human. So when you are looking at, don't just look at it from the financial aspect, look at it that there's also an impact on us as human beings. So let's take some case studies from around us. So I'm looking at it organization-wise. There are some ESG risks, the ESG opportunities that can emanate from it, strategies that have been put in place, and then the possible outcomes. So I'll look at Lafarge Holcim Cement. I'll take it first. So if you understand the process of cement production process, you understand that basically what you calcine is limestone. And then once you calcine limestone from simple chemistry, you have CO2. Once you burn any organic material, okay, you have CO2 emissions. And then from the fuel itself, the end product of combustion is basically water vapor and then CO2. So basically it is classified as a hard-to-abate industry. Why? Because of the emissions that you are likely to have from it. But then there are other opportunities that will come from that. Okay, now you see Lafarge talking about transition to low-carbon cement. You hear Lafarge talking about green cement. You hear Lafarge talking about their geocycle system, okay, which looks at alternative fuels that they can consume, possibly biomass, to ensure that their emissions go very, very low. So this is an opportunity that has come out of the fact that they already understand that there's a risk from this operation. Then what can we do to ensure that we manage this risk, we reduce it? They're creating an opportunity there, which is what? Migration to low carbon cement and then renewable energies. Then strategy was to invest in low carbon cement technology, increase the use of their renewables in their geocycle system, and then implemented energy efficient processes. Then what is the outcome? You have your reduced carbon footprint. If you actually check their report, you'll find out that their emissions had actually been reducing. And then there's cost savings and then improve energy efficiency. Let's also look at Seven Up Bottling Company. Some ESG risks that we could have would be high packaging waste management and of course achieving extended producer responsibility. What are the opportunities? Moving into RPET, that's recycled PET, and then circular economy. And then there's always a lot of things that you can actually achieve from this when you move to RPET and then circular economy. Ensure that your waste is managed, segregated, and sorted from source. Okay, then the strategy was to implement 30% RPET, trying to also push that further, launched Trash Talk through Feedback, promoted, sector-based sustainable waste, plastic waste management. And then the outcome is enhanced brand reputation, achievement of EPR, and then improve stakeholders' goodwill. So because organization, people would always look at what are you doing to manage this impact that could come from your operation. Then we can also look at Tesla, automotive industry. Okay, then one of the ESG risks that they're having is regulatory risks around electric vehicle adoption and battery consign issues. So which opportunities have they tried to derive from it? Leadership in clean energy transition and innovative technology. Then what are the strategies? They invested in renewable energy infrastructure, developed sustainable manufacturing processes, and prioritize product safety and quality. Then what's the outcome? Establish market leadership. So we can go on and on this way, but then I just brought out these case studies for you to actually see that if you have been able to look at your key material ESG issues and then identify that there's a risk to it, you find a way to turn that risk to an opportunity so that you can minimize that risk to the lowest level by developing how can you achieve that? By developing a strategy around that. And then once this happens, of course, there will be a positive outcome. Then let's go to talking about strategy. How do we now develop an effective ESG strategy? How can an organization develop an effective ESG strategy? So first, I would always say that you have to conduct a baseline assessment, okay? So you can't state that you have made an impact if there's no philosophy around it, if there's no baseline assessment. So you have to start with your current state assessment. Where are you? Are you on ground zero? Are you on 5%? Are you on 10%? Where are you at the moment? So that you can state that you are setting a target. You are budgeting to achieve this. And then once it is achieved, there's already a baseline to assess it. Then you can now talk about impact. So impact has to be measurable. Then once you're able to conduct a baseline assessment to understand that this is where you are as an organization, next thing is to deploy an ESG materiality assessment. So not all ESG issues are material to your organization. An ESG issue that may be material to Seven Up Bottling Company as a beverage maker may not be material to an organization that maybe produces cement, or an organization that is into core waste management. It may not be material to your organization. So you have to look at what is material to you, because your investors, your stakeholders, they are also looking at what is material to your business, because they know that those things can bring up risk that can impact on the business financials as well. So you deploy an ESG materiality assessment, and then you engage your stakeholders on the issues that have been identified, and then set clear goals. So you don't set goals in isolation. You don't just say, okay, we are going to achieve about 30% reduction from our baseline carbon footprint in the next 2 years on your own. You are not the only driver. You are not the only one that will facilitate that. So you have to ensure that you get the buy-in of all your stakeholders on these clear issues, and then set clear goals so that everyone knows what is their role in ensuring that you achieve the strategy that had been designed. Then you institute governance, build capacity, and integrate it into the system. So, a lot of time there may be frictions in a system. Why? Probably because when the ESG strategy was designed, it was designed to stand on its own, not being infused into the system. So it's best if you find a way to try to also infuse it into your corporate strategy. Then conducting ESG materiality assessment. So when you are trying to conduct an ESG materiality assessment, you have to look at the universe of topics. So sorry, please confirm you can still see my screen.
I can see it. Conducting ESG materiality assessment is what I can see here.
Okay. I noticed that my video was not turned on this side.
Yeah, and then perhaps you now want to put it on a slideshow as well.
Oh, it wasn't on slideshow. Oh my. Okay. I'm trying to get on. Okay. Turned on.
I can see.
Okay. You can
your
see me
face.
now?
Yes.
All right. Okay,
I can
so
see
what
you.
else am I supposed
The
to
next
do?
one is to go to slideshow on top of the bar. You'll see the bar. That's a red
Okay.
bar also. It's showing right here where I am. You'll see transition from your left, transition, animations, then slideshow from your left.
Okay.
Click on
How
that.
about now?
No,
How
yeah,
about now? It's
beautiful.
better now?
Button.
All right, thanks
Great.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So sorry about that.
No,
Okay, so I was talking about conducting a materiality assessment, and I said that I had earlier on stated that you have to look at the universe of topics, okay? And I mentioned that you have to look at frameworks, probably GRI, even the SDGs, look at frameworks to be able to, extract the topics that you feel will be material, okay? But then you look at, first of all, universe of topics. Then you also have to conduct what is called stakeholders mapping. Not all stakeholders are material also to your business, are important to your business. So you have to conduct a stakeholders mapping to be able to say that, okay, this stakeholder will be impacted by my business activities, okay? This is also an interested party. So you map out those stakeholders so that you know who and who to deploy the materiality assessment to, okay? But with this, I'm talking about double materiality, meaning that you employ to your internal stakeholders and also external stakeholders. So once you deploy this universe of topics, then you can be able to, benchmark using industry trends, standards, global goals, and then you will be able to achieve what is called a materiality matrix. So materiality matrix will tell you topics that are basically for awareness, topics that you need to monitor, okay? And then topics that are very, very material to your business, okay? Because there are two ways, because they are important to your business, because they can impact your business, and also they can impact your stakeholders, okay? So you look at the material topics that can impact your stakeholders and then your business, and then this forms the material topics that you have to measure and manage, okay? I had earlier mentioned that you cannot manage what you can't measure. And then because, ESG is also a tool through which your investors would want to analyze how viable your business is, okay? Once you start reporting and measuring this, then you would always have something to present once there's a due diligence that is deployed to your organization. So I looked at Sustainalytics. So Sustainalytics is also a rating organization that tries to rate organizations basically on ESG practice, okay? I looked at what they classified as a top, their 10 most relevant, metrics. These are ESG, material ESG issues across about 42 industries, okay? I found out that human capital, so most times, you don't hear people talk about human, but then, this is an aspect or an issue that can make or mar your business. And then they also identified business ethics, product governance, carbon-owned operations, okay? So in carbon emissions, we look at different scopes. Scope 1 and Scope 2 looks at, what is around within your own scope, and then Scope 3 looks at, indirect emission. Then they also analyzed emissions, effluent, and waste. So these are about the top 5. What does that tell you? That, there's possibility of risks emanating from this. So this is from Sustainalytics. I had to show you so you can understand that a lot of issues are already being analyzed. So on your own also, you have to ensure that your business looks at what is material to them, and then what is generally around the globe, what is seen as a key issue, and then ensure that, you find a way to manage them. Then how do you implement the ESG strategy? Okay. First, you have to ensure that you integrate the strategy which you have designed into existing management systems. Okay. It shouldn't just be standalone. It's on its own. You just have to infuse it so that the whole system understands that ESG is not just for one unit. Every system, every function in your system has a role to play. And then you establish the goals to be able to manage them, establish targets to be able to manage them. And everyone also needs to know the role they have to play. In fact, for some systems, it becomes, you have functional heads that are key owners of a material topic or issue that had been identified. And then you see them driving it, it becomes their KPIs. before you know, it becomes, you know, the DNA of the system, because everyone wants to achieve it as what? A corporate goal. And then you have to engage all stakeholders, especially suppliers. So most times we try to operationalize ESG, forgetting that the social element, that the suppliers, your supply chain, which is part of your value chain, form a critical element in that area. And, you know, it's just a case of someone producing electric vehicle, because you know that for you to have an electric vehicle, you need a battery. And then one key element for producing battery is cobalt. Okay, where do you source for cobalt from? From Congo. And then what is the practice around there? So it's easy for someone to say, I am using an electric vehicle, I produce an electric vehicle, but then you don't look at the value chain to understand the impact even on people, or how it is sourced. Is there responsibility in the way it is sourced? Okay, what about the people that are, you know, that help you to extract that mineral? You find out there's a lot of child labor issues there. But then ESG goes beyond, I had mentioned earlier, just the profit that you're making. Okay, it looks at how are the people managed? How is the environment managed? So you look at this, and these are what will impact generally on the bottom line of the business. And then you start monitoring progress and then review it intermittently. Then you also have to communicate your ESG progress to your stakeholders. That is where transparency comes in. And that is where you also see organizations publishing their reports. And how do you now check the strength of your ESG strategy? Okay, so I just gave example of some strong ESGs and then some examples of weak ESG. So you check the strength of your ESG strategy by first looking at the risk. Is it reducing? Or you are deploying you're deploying your strategy, you are engaging in activities, you have set goals, you believe that you're working towards it, but your risk is not reducing. Okay, so once you find out that your risk is not reducing, then your strategy is definitely weak. So you have to look at, and also some of the dynamics that will show you that it's weak is because you have a lot of losses due to supply disruption. You incur fines, there'll be penalties. Each time you hear that Federal Ministry of Environment is coming, you're already at an edge because you don't know what will be identified. Okay. On the other hand, for you to say that your strategy is a strong one, you will find out that there's reduced supply chain disruption because they are well engaged. Okay, there's reduced probability of stranded assets due to climate change because you have identified climate change as a risk, and then you have set a lot of strategy mechanisms in motion to try to, you know, minimize that risk and even bring out an opportunity from it. There will be opportunities and growth. There will be organizational resilience, and then your workforce will be positively engaged. And may I also state that this can also reduce your attrition rate. So there are points to know. ESG integration is very critical for long-term business, organizational success, and business success, and even personal success. So when I talk about this, I also tell people that you have to also look at yourself. Have you been able to even analyze your own personal carbon footprint? Do you even know your own scope 1 emission, scope 2 emission, and then scope 3 emission? Because sometimes we try to dissociate ourselves from the process. It's as if we're just looking at this is organization, okay? It is for the organization, but then you are driving that for the organization. How does that resonate within you as a person? Then you have to identify and manage ESG risks and opportunities. Okay, so we have explained how to, you know, establish an ESG strategy. We have also spoken about materiality and how to know your key material issues. Okay, and we have also spoken about how to try to identify the risks and opportunities and then minimize them to the barest minimum, and then maximize the opportunities that, of course. Then develop and implement a comprehensive strategy. Once you're able to integrate your ESG into core operation, you'll be able to identify and manage and start managing the risk. Please develop and implement a comprehensive ESG strategy. In fact, this fits into the strategy, okay? With the strategy, you drive it and then try to ensure that you continuously review and then improve your ESG performance. So my recommendations will be that you leverage a structured framework to identify the material ESG risks and opportunities, okay? Look at SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standard Boards, GRI, the International Sustainability Standard Boards, or the TCFD framework, okay, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, which had also been, you know, incorporated into the ISSB. Look at all these frameworks, try to identify the key material ESG issues, okay, and then personally drive it to the organization and try to also understand what is key to them in terms of ESG issues and then opportunities, and then develop your strategy around there. Integrate the material ESG risks and opportunities into your corporate strategy using the ESG analytics for your decision making. So the essence is, once you're able to identify those issues and then you're able to develop and design a strategy, the outcome will tell you, support you in making business decisions. You will know how to move, okay, in such a way that your organization will be well conserved and protected and also sustained. Then use the ESG performance to better position the business to be a market leader, to be a thought leader, and then ensure that you have comprehensive disclosures and reporting that meets the needs of all your stakeholders. Then the key takeaway is the environment is our life. So I would want to, each time I talk, I would want to bring it down home. Okay. Now, when we look at everything that we're talking about ESG.
Sorry, maybe we can, the time is far gone. Maybe we can, I know you were about having the last slide. Yes. And so yes, I was waiting for that indeed.
Yes. That's the last slide. Okay, so finally, I would want to end by stating that our environment is our life, okay? If your environment is not healthy, you won't be healthy. If your environment is not okay, you won't be okay. So environment needs to be sustained to be able to sustain you, to be able to, so that you can be able to drive the progress and the profit of the business. And once you have stated that something is your life, it then means that the onus lies on you to ensure that you protect it, preserve it, and sustain it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for that, Junior Loveland Okoye. That was quite brilliant. I wouldn't want to rehash what you've said because we seem to be grappling with time now. But I would like to say this, that our next speaker is someone I know. She's an executive director and Chief Financial Officer at Development Bank of Nigeria, where she has responsibility for the Finance and Corporate Services Directorate, comprising Treasury, Investor Relations, Corporate Development, Financial Reporting, Budget Performance, Management, Information Technology, and Corporate Communications. She is a finance professional with over 3 decades experience in banking, accounting, auditing, finance, and business strategy. She started her professional career at, if you remember, the Price Waterhouse and now PwC, and has held progressively senior roles or positions in financial services in Nigeria and Canada. She is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, a chartered professional accountant of Canada, CPA, a project management professional, and an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. She is also an associate of the Institute of Directors. She is, I call her Madam Ijoma Ozolumba. But before she comes up, I just wanted to say that Lovely had talked about opportunities, just as when she was talking about risk. I know quite well that the Development Bank of Nigeria has made significant strides in integrating ESG principles into its operations. The bank has implemented various initiatives that I'm aware of to ensure that its lending practices align with sustainable development goals and promote positive social and environmental outcomes. Madam Ijoma, in the light of this, would you like to share with us the ESG initiatives that DBN has brought about, and indeed how we can all learn from this to unlock business opportunities? We'd like to hear from you on this. Please, kindly unmute yourself and let's have your opinion on what DBN has done looking at the opportunities for us as businesses, how we can further unlock business opportunities. I hope she's able to unmute herself. Deborah, do you want to check that out quickly? Anna, can you hear us?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay, great. Okay. I think two devices, one can be silenced, and then I'm trying to locate the name here so that if possible, the host, I can tell the host what to. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for
I've
her
now
to
been
join.
unmuted.
Oh, great. We can hear you now. While we're waiting for you to speak, ma, please, if you have a question, kindly put it in the chat box. If we have opportunity, we will allow you to speak. Otherwise, we will simply harvest your questions and allow our distinguished speakers to talk to those questions. Please, your contribution, your comments, anything that you like, your remarks, kindly insert it in the chat box. Ma, the opportunities and the initiatives.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Itwa. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all. I think it's to start by saying a big thank you to NECA, the DG, other management, and also the staff, and also the members of the organized private sectors and members of NECA. And also to say thank you to Dr. Itwa, staff management of Natural Eco Capital. Am I able to share my screen? Yes.
You can share. It's possible you can share. The green icon at the bottom.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up. Yeah, brilliant. Slideshow now. We're there.
Is
Please
it
go
on
ahead.
slide 2? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just, like you pointed out, Dr. Ita, just do a brief intro of DBN, and I'll highlight the initiatives that we've carried out, both internally and externally. There is, of course, going to be a lot of overlap between my presentation and Lovelyn's own, and where she's already made the point, I will just not spend time on that. This is actually supposed to be a case study of DBN. But I know that also as a bank, and I know that members of NECA will be interested in how does this affect financing of our businesses at the end of the day, where show me the money. So I hope that this presentation will be able to do that and be able to point out that the financing and ESG are not mutually exclusive, but actually can support and complement each other. So this is the agenda. I'm just going to move this out of the way. Okay. So like I said, I'll start with introductions. I won't deal too much on ESG imperatives that has been clearly articulated in the previous presentation. Some global and domestic lessons, just a few. And then the DBN internal view, how we view sustainability and ESG internally, and what we've been able to do in embedding that into our day-to-day operations, and how that then affects the ecosystem in terms of funding small businesses and SMEs in Nigeria. And then looking at our external view also, and then benefits and opportunities. So who is DBN? DBN, the Development Bank of Nigeria, is a wholesale development finance institution incorporated in Nigeria, and started operations about 7 years ago in 2017. We've, over the last 7-8 years, been able to lend about 1 trillion naira, 1 trillion naira to various sectors in the economy, affecting over 500,000 small businesses. And we do this through our intermediary partners. I will share that going on in the presentation as well. We call them our participating financial institutions. These are banks. They could be commercial banks, they could be microfinance banks. But as a wholesale bank, these are the off-takers of our funds, and they then make this funding available to small businesses in all sectors of the economy. So our vision is there articulated. I won't dwell too much on this. Is to be Nigeria's primary development finance institution, promoting growth and sustainability. And so you can see sustainability featuring very prominently on our vision statement. If you also look at our core values shown there, sustainability is the first of our core values, which we've acronymed STEADY. So the S in STEADY stands for sustainability. So just to highlight that this is at the core of what we do at DBN. I'll spend a little time talking of our funding structure because that also plays into why we have to take ESG very seriously and why we start out at having sustainability at very front and center. So we have an almost 40-60% equity debt split, and if you look at the bar chart there, our equity at the start about $1.2 billion, largely provided in terms of equity by the federal government through Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund, both of them together owning 75% of DBN. And then we also have international equity holders. The African Development Bank holds 18% and the European Investment Bank holding 7%. So a broad category, a broad scope in terms of shareholders from government to the international multilateral agencies. And then in terms of debt funding, DBN was the whole idea is to catalyze funding through multilateral lenders. And you see that clearly in the debt providers. So at the very top, we have IBRD. Of course, that's the World Bank, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And then you have the African Development Bank in there, the French Development Agency. KfW is the German Development Bank. And the ADF there is actually also a fund of the African Development Bank. So a very international range of shareholders. I'll briefly talk about our products and our services. So we operate through 3 mandates. The first is lending, which is providing loans to participating financial institutions. I already alluded to that. The second one is providing guarantees. So this is a mechanism through which we provide guarantees to banks to also increase their lending to small businesses. So this is an innovative way of making sure that banks also lend their own funds. And studies have shown that they will be more likely to do that if they have a guarantee. So we share the loss. If there is a non-performing loan on the portfolio, DBN will step in and share that loss with the banks. The whole idea is to make sure that small businesses have more access to funding. It could be either through DBN or it could be through the banks. DBN is trying to affect the entire ecosystem by ensuring that banks also lend. There is just so much that DBN can do as a small institution, but with this guarantee product, you then find that you are able to ensure that everybody comes on board with the ultimate aim of small businesses having more access to funding. And the third mandate is technical assistance. So this is both to the banks, the PFIs, and also to small businesses. So through various training mechanisms, it could be study tours, it could be in person, it could be online, it could be actually embedding within the banks, helping them to understand how to manage small businesses, how to improve their credit processes. So those are all within the ambit of what we do. I'll put an impact slide here, and this is our 2023 results. So for these are audited. Of course, after this, we've been able to do much more than what's here, but this is 2023. So I'll just point out to some of the indices here. So as I pointed out, as at 2023, we're at 787 billion, but today we're over 1 trillion. Number of SMEs above 500,000, and of those 500,000, 120,000 are actually youth-owned businesses. So we define youth as 18 to 35. So these are businesses that are, we find that they are largely in the innovative space, and they intend to bring in a lot of digital and creative focus on their business. And in terms of youth unemployment, this is a very important part and also a priority of government. On gender as well, of the 500,000, we have about 350,000 that are women. And this also speaks to trying to ensure that women have access. Traditionally, it's known that women haven't had as much access to finance as their male counterparts. And whenever they do have access, we see a kind of cascading effect on development in terms of the education and health outcomes of the family. And so it's an important consideration for DBN to continue to support this important aspect of Nigeria's development. I would like to just highlight the ESG components. Loveline have done a very beautiful job of this, so I won't spend so much time here. But it's to bring out the various categories and ensure that we keep them front and center, and we know what we're doing at any point in time, which areas we're focusing on. As she also pointed out, in terms of materiality, what is material to you might not be material to the next company. But this allows you to have a holistic picture of the components of ESG and the areas that we need to focus on. And when I talk about the DBN story, you will see that we've focused on particular areas also of this framework. I'll quickly talk about some examples, both locally and globally. Dangote, so different, like I said, different companies, of course, have different ESG positionings. These examples help us to situate that and kind of determine where we also want to situate our positioning as a company or as a member of the organized private sector. So for Dangote, being a cement company, but actually more than that, I know Dangote has been more in the news these days for petrol, which is very topical right now. But we also see on TV a lot of what they are doing on social responsibility, especially on food security and on youth employment. So that's kind of a good positioning for Dangote and speaks to the fact that as an entity affecting virtually every sector of the economy, it's good for them to have that broad kind of social responsibility. Also, as a cement company, of course, carbon emissions, sustainable practices. But then look at MTN. And because of the kind of company they're also focusing on the youth, they're focusing on youth employment. We see them always talking about how they help youth to become installers and all that, and digital innovation as well. If you look at Seplat, being an oil producer and I think the largest E&P locally, there's a lot of focus on community. So ensuring that the host community is happy, ensuring that there is no tension within the community where they produce food. So even though we can classify them as a very not so carbon friendly in terms of the main product there is fossil fuel, but they try to do that within a kind of environmentally responsible manner, and also looking after the social part of the ESG, looking at local content and also managing their supply chain. GT Bank, a lot of focus in GT Bank on transparency and ethics, and they've come to own that space and be known for as a bank that always does the right thing. For First Bank, also very good positioning in terms of the fact that they spread across the country. They have probably the largest spread of any bank, and also looking at financial inclusion, especially for the rural areas. Access Bank has done a good job also of integrating ESG into the framework, and also has a positioning around improving public service, improving the capacity of Nigeria's public service, which we know that there is a lot of need for that. So there is that positioning there. For Zenith, education and healthcare, also front and center for them. And then Nigerian breweries, again, because they use a lot of water, environment and water use, and then creative industry because of the nature of the products, largely targeted at the youth population. And then there's some global examples that I put in as well. Unilever, again, recycling because of the nature of their products, and then sustainable sourcing as well. Salesforce, employee wellness, philanthropy is what they are known for. Loveline already talked about Tesla, so that's a very good example in terms of how do you position considering your industry. And NVIDIA as well, known for having very gender-friendly and responsible practices for their workers. Now, going to the DBN internal view, I'll just highlight some DBN sustainable practices. We starting on the environment, we embedded that into the framework as well. We're looking at renewable energy, so things around solar, inverters, ensuring that we reduce our footprint in terms of electricity usage as well. We're working on a new DBN head office building. It's going to be a green building. It's going to be certified at the platinum level in terms of LEED certification. So we're leading with that messaging to say that we're actually walking the talk as DBN, and we're going to lead by having a building that is green and a building that eventually will be self-sustaining. So in terms of water, in terms of energy use, and also how it speaks to the well-being of the employees as well. And in our operations as well, we look at our usage, we look at our plastics, we ensure that we recycle, we reduce our paper usage, and all these are monitored and also reported in our annual integrated report, because what you have to measure what you're doing, and you have to ensure that the trend, you see an improvement year on year. Of course, we have a net zero strategy where we've committed to ensuring that we become net zero, and tracking all the initiatives that we have to carry out to achieve that. On the social side, employee wellness is very important to us. A lot of emphasis on employee health and safety, in terms of when you come to work, ensure that you're safe, and also focusing on ensuring good health outcomes for our employees. We have a gender policy, so focusing on ensuring that we promote all genders, but in particular females, because we know that they've not had, we have not had as much opportunities, and we intend to close that gap at DBN. Also code of conduct, HR practices as well. On the governance side, we have a board that is competitively sourced and gender balanced as well. We aspire to have at least 40% of the board being female. As well, the board is predominantly independent directors, so that's a key aspect of the governance of DBN, ensuring that the highest decision-making body in the bank is made up predominantly of independent directors. As well, for management, we ensure that merit is given its rightful place in the way management is also recruited, and that goes for all the employees also of the bank. Innovation is a key aspect of our ESG strategy. Every year we have an innovation challenge, both internally and externally, and we see that as a way of promoting digital innovation, digital uptake, but also increasing the way we look at the organization, especially for the future, and making it a more sustainable organization. Global partnerships. So DBN is really an outcome of global partnerships between the entities that are shown earlier. And because we have those entities participating in DBN, we have to meet all the sustainable practices, and we have to continue to report and keep them apprised and ensure that in all jurisdictions where we are partners or where we operate, we are in compliance with the sustainability standards, we're in compliance with reporting and how things are done. A lot of these partners have exclusion lists. Their monies will not go to certain aspects of industry, and we have to ensure that we comply with that. So that's critical on the DBN story in terms of sustainability. For our external view on sustainability, we have an acronym that we call GRAPPLE. So GRAPPLE talks about green and thematic funding. It talks about risk management. The A there is affiliations and accreditations. And the P stands for partnerships and alliances. The second P stands for products and programs, and then learning and capacity building and external engagements and awareness. So within GRAPPLE, we situate our sustainability strategy for the external view. So this is a good way of looking at it holistically and ensuring that is integrated into our day-to-day operations. So I think if you have one takeaway from this presentation, is to see how we've been able to coalesce our sustainability strategy on the external view by having it in a simple and easy to understand way within this acronym and within this framework. So if I go one after the other, under green funding, green or thematic funding, we have various funds that the development partners have been able to make available to the bank. So what it means is, as a member of NECA, you look at your business, and if you meet the criteria for these funds, you can then approach your bank to say, I'm interested in having DBN funding in this regard. So we have the German Development Bank had provided 25 million euros for green finance. So if you're a business in renewable energy or energy efficiency, this is specialized funding that has been provided for that, ensuring that those businesses that help with sustainability in terms of environmental have access to finance. From the French Development Agency, we have a 15 million euro gender line. So again, this speaks to businesses owned or managed by women. They have a specialized line that they can also access from their financial institutions. And then for youth, we're working with the European Investment Bank on this to also have a 200 million euro line that will be targeted towards youth-owned businesses in the creative sectors, in green sectors, and in the digital space. So these are all specialized funding. The World Bank has also provided $70 million for agri, especially on livestock, this in conjunction with the federal government. So if you're a business in this space, in any of the livestock value chains, so this is milk production, dairy, beef, poultry, fishery, this fund is for you as well. If I go to the risk management, we have an ESG framework where also externally our partners must also have an ESG framework. They must have environmental social risk management systems. And I know that Natural Eco Capital helped us with that, and it's also helping a lot of our PFIs. I'm sure by extension, you can also help a lot of, or you're also already helping a lot of NECA members as well to ensure that they put in place all these policies and initiatives. It's good to have policies and initiatives, but also the monitoring, the managing, and ensuring that they are embedded in the day-to-day operations of the entity is also very important. Affiliations and accreditations. We currently are accredited by the SSCI, the Sustainability Standards, is a standard out of Europe. So we continue to look for how we ensure that in most jurisdictions or in all jurisdictions where we operate or where we have partners, we meet the basic standards and benchmarks that they set. The Global Climate Fund, the GCF accreditation, recently Development Bank of Nigeria became the first and the only agency accredited by the GCF. This is a global climate fund of the United Nations that has been put together by a number of countries to finance climate action. And it's the biggest climate fund globally. So this is also an opportunity for businesses that have projects in the green space to also come forward to have some GCF funding, access GCF funding through DBN, Development Bank of Nigeria. We also have partnerships and alliances. So if you look at the social side of ESG, partnership, and then look at SDG as well, SDG 17 talks about partnership for the goals. So there is hardly, in today's collaborative world, you want to get that impact by partnering with a lot of like-minded institutions. So that's what we try to do within partnership and alliances, where we are talking with, it could be REA, it could be different government agency, NASME, it could even be NECA, because everybody chips in, and then that's how we end up building a better world overall. And then we have programs and products. I've talked about some of them in the green line, the women product. We have an interest drawback. So we have different products that we've positioned externally to address ESG considerations. And then learning and capacity building, flowing from our mandate. How does that then incorporate in how we talk to partners, how we build capacity, not just of the banks, but also of small businesses and even associations such as yours. We have a community of practice for microfinance banks, because we know that in terms of ESG, the challenges that we have in terms of embedding ESG, of course, the first thing is, oh, we can't afford it. So we have this community of practice where we also ensure that microfinance banks are also able to adopt ESG principles. We have a learning management system. It's hosted online. If you want to learn more about sustainability and how you can embed ESG, you can also avail yourself of that. There is an app that we have also, is known as BizAid. You can also download that from the app iStore or from the Google Play Store, and you can get access to sustainability training. So that's also a key part of the external view on what DBN is doing on sustainability. And then the E is engagement, external engagements and awareness. So this is where we play our advocacy role, talking to government or talking to various stakeholders on how sustainability can be more embedded in Nigeria. We have set up green clubs in secondary schools where it's like a Catch Them Young program, and we want to be able to create this awareness while they're young, and also see it within a school system so that it's a controlled environment. They also have the learning, it's both practical and it's also theoretical to also train up the future generation.
Let me just quickly make an announcement, ma.
Okay.
Before you take, I want to kindly request our great audience here to give us additional 10 minutes, because we have less than 15 minutes, or maybe around 11 minutes or thereabout that left. So that we can round up, take some questions. And so please, thank you very much.
Okay, I'll take just one more minute. So this next slide, I will not talk so much to it, but I found this at a recent presentation done by the African Development Bank. And I think that these slides will be shared and then you can have some time to look through it. But really, it identifies the opportunities for small businesses in all the areas. And it talks about current trends and how they tend towards ESG, and small businesses can also take opportunities of that. So I'll skip that, but it's a very important, and it has a lot of information that I think the audience will benefit from. Just in terms of benefits and opportunities, embedding ESG in your various operations, what benefits would accrue to you? Operational efficiency, talent management, you'll be able to attract and retain staff. Risk management, I've talked of that. Investment and funding, this is very critical. And the more you are able to show that you're a sustainable entity, the more you're able to attract the kind of funding, and also affordable funding to finance business. And I think that has been the case with us at DBN. The more we're able to embed ESG, the more we see partners coming forward, both locally and internationally, wanting to be associated with the bank and wanting to work through the bank to achieve our common objectives. Partnerships are very important. So if you looked at the title of my presentation, I talked about relationships. What kind of relationships would ensure that you have financial sustainability into the long term? Very important that you align with organizations and individuals that focus on ESG and see that as important. Because I talked about innovation, also ability to enter new markets and customer loyalty. So with these opportunities and these benefits, the goal is to have a long-term value creation for your organization and also financial sustainability. And ESG, embedding ESG, definitely promotes that over both the short and the long term. I had promised to show our partners. These are participating financial institutions. If you currently bank with any of this, you can approach them for funding through DBN on any of the thematic areas that I already mentioned. So this is just a list of some of them. If you go to our website, there's a more comprehensive list as well. And these are also our partners and alliances. Our development partners, I alluded to some of them already on the funding side, and also regulatory partners, and then on the SMEs ecosystem, and on capacity building and training as well. DBN operates in all sectors, but we know that some sectors are more important to government currently, considering where we are in our development. We also see those as our priority sectors. I've listed some of them here, but in general, DBN operates in all sectors. So there is no discrimination, so to speak, in terms of sectors. But these are some of the priority sectors that we look at when we do our financing intervention. Thank you very much, and looking forward to any questions or feedback. Thank you very much, Dr. Ito. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much for this brilliant presentation as well. Quite illuminating. Just not only, I recall earlier, General Okoye had talked about non-financial inclusion. You have also created additional value of financial inclusion. That's in addition to all that have been said, where people can even source money and how they can get money. Interestingly, thank you so much. And somebody just said, thank you. This is highly inspiring. On the chat, what I see more there are more people talking about how explosive the presentations had actually been. They have been so. I must say that. And I have just only 2 questions here. Before that question, somebody has said, it's impressive to learn. This is Neka Idam. It is impressive to learn about SBC activities in the ESG sustainability space. Still, the subject is still very much in the realm of international businesses or those who work with international organizations. NECA's role is pivotal in this demystifying the concept, making it mainstream for the critical mass of employers to support Nigeria achieve its national targets. And I think that is one of the principles or key reasons driving this webinar series we are doing, NECA and Natural Eco Capital. Engineer Loveline Okoye, why are organizations not talking about water footprints as it is in carbon footprints? So water footprint, why people are not talking about it? Just to say, from the angle of natural capital accounting, people are already talking about it. People are measuring what they're doing. The impact and dependency, they're already doing that. But of course, Engineer Okoye, is Felix Unumadu that had asked that question. You want to speak very, very briefly, not extensive, please. We encourage every other person, please, put your questions on the chat box. We will get them to provide short responses when we're sending out. If they give us the permission to send out this document to you, we will include it. But of course, we will create a document from this so that it can be made, we'll give that to the public. Another question from, yes, NECA again, given perennial challenges with integrity and ethics, how can we ensure genuine transparency and credible reporting of ESG initiatives and their impact in Nigeria. Those are the two questions I have. They taken from the box. The audience, unfortunately, you do not have the opportunity to raise your voice here, but you can write through this. Please, in 2 minutes or a minute, Engineer Koye, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Dr. Itua. I will just be brief. I would say that the concern is very, is a legitimate concern, okay? Because a lot of people still see water as a local issue and not a global issue. But then it doesn't make water any less global issue, because if you look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, you'll find water sitting right there as SDGs, okay? But then because globally, there's no set target, you know, when you talk about climate change, there's already the Paris Agreement, there's net zero targets, okay? Because people are already feeling the impact directly. But then for water, you know, there's no, what they are pushing is, you know, to ensure that there's accessibility of water and then wash. But then if you look at your core operation and then some other global organizations that are also having targets, you know, and also having mandates, we have the United Nations Global Compact CEO Water Mandate, okay? You also have CDP for a lot of organizations that their investors are already requesting that they report and disclose what they are doing in terms of environmental conservation. You find water, you know, being a very focal aspect of that. We also have the World Business Council on Sustainable Development Water Initiative, and even GRI will tell you that you have to report your water withdrawn, your water consumed, and then your water discharge. So I think it's also topical. The only thing is that you have to analyze what is material to you. Some processes are dry, you know, while some processes are wet. And then even Lagos change, the Lagos State, I attended, I think in June, Lagos International Water Conference. So it's quite topical. A lot of discussions around there to ensure that, you know, water is conserved. And I don't think there's any sustainability report that you look at now and you check their scorecard, especially environmental scorecard, and then you will not see water as a matrix there. So the onus lies in all of us to also ensure that on our own, we are monitoring water, we are managing water. We have seen other organizations or maybe some countries that, you know, the utility bill will be so much that on your own, you start tracking your water, okay? Possibly Nigeria will get there, but then don't wait till Nigeria gets there, start tracking and managing your water usage now. Then the last question was on, I think for reporting, how do we achieve transparency and then credible reporting? I would want to state that for transparency, we have to start disclosing, okay? Currently, we have a Lagos carbon register. What does it tell you? It then means that, you know, all stakeholders want to know what you are emitting, where you are, what's your baseline, what are you currently doing to ensure that you go negative, okay? Then there are a lot of rating agencies at the moment that are also trying to track to understand what organizations are doing. And if you don't report, they will give you a non-disclosure, okay, and then non-conformity as well. So for transparency, we have to disclose more. In disclosing, we should not greenwash as well. Then to achieve credible reporting, our advice that we ensure that we assure whatever we are giving to the public, okay? You see organizations now engaging third-party consultants to assure their, you know, whatever that they are stating or whatever metrics that they are stating that they are reporting on and whatever data that they are giving out to state that this is where they are. So with that, we can achieve credibility if, you know, we start focusing on also assuring what we are giving to the public. Thank you.
That was very brilliant. I want to thank you for this. We have additional questions. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to take them because of it's right on the hour. What's the time that is left? I would like to use it to thank everyone. In addition to thanking everyone, on the agenda, we had a call to action. I will just read that out. The call to action arises from all the discussions here, and then we will share this with you subsequently. The call to action, let me see if I can, let me see.
Please, call to action.
Yeah, call to action. If you can see this. Can you see my screen now? The call to action is that we encourage all organizations to conduct a comprehensive ESG assessment, develop a clear ESG strategy, integrate ESG into decision-making processes, enhance stakeholder engagement, measure and report on ESG performance. That is what we have been able to pick from all that have been said. And don't miss out on the opportunities and benefits that ESG integration offers. You recall what has been said by our distinguished speakers. We will not want to rehash. Start your ESG journey today. For any further information, contact, there are emails there that you want to take note of and then use. I don't know if the DG is available to say the closing words. Deborah?
Good evening, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
I will say the closing remarks on behalf of the DG. He has been called into another meeting, but just simply to say a very, very big thank you to everyone that has been on board. We started with 100 people online, and we have so many others that have joined via our YouTube channel. So thank you to everyone that has been part of it. I mean, for all of us to become, it means to be here, it means we are very interested in what is going on in the ecosystem space. And like we said, it is not just the hearing, it's the implementation that counts. And I love what our two speakers have emphasized on, the need for all of us to be part of this global challenge to save our environment. Thank you to Engineer Loveling Okoye. Thank you to Mrs. Ijeoma Ozulumba. Thank you to our very wonderful Dr. Eugene Itua for wonderful moderation. Thank you to everyone who has worked in the back end to be part of, to ensure that this program runs smoothly. So we just want us to invite this call to action. We'll be sharing the slides. Also, the videos, you can access it via our YouTube channels that are online. And you can also feel free to like and share with others who may be interested in this topic. ESG integration is something that is important to every business. It saves you money, it enhances your brand, it ensures that your stakeholders know that you are doing your part in saving the environment. And the current situation we're in Nigeria now, you have no choice but to try and conserve. Otherwise, you will have to spend that money. So we ask that you please take all these learning nuggets with you and join us as in this global fight to save our environment. Thank you once more for being here, and we look forward to seeing you at our future programs. Thank you, Dr. Itua. I would like to hand over to you to say the final bye-bye, since this is a partnership between NECA and Natural Echo.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ajala, for all those beautiful and kind remarks to everyone. Please, if you are in position, I think you can allow everyone to put on their video so that we can take a group photograph. All we just need from you, two things. You put on your camera and you give us that smile. And you know, Koye is providing an example of how you are going to do the smiling. So let's do that, please. Please allow everyone to be in position to put their video. Yeah, I can see even the men, they are smiling more. This. I think we can create as one of the core elements, maybe smiling can be part of ESG. So some are smiling, others are not. Please smile. We want to see. Put on your video, please. Some are not putting on their video. Please do.
Maybe they may be in places they cannot put on video.
So yeah, but well, from what I can see, those that can, I think some of them are battling. You can see they are putting them on.
Okay.
They are battling with it. Just allow them, please.
Okay.
I'm going to mention a name here. Monica Nwosu, put on your video. It's interesting. So if you have any further need in this area, please reach out to us like has been said. You have more to gain from what our erudite speakers have said. You have more to gain than to lose in understanding how this works. And I think there was a version that was ongoing through the YouTube in the event that you missed out any session or any aspect of this. Please, you can download it through the YouTube. Thank you very much and have a very beautiful day. Bye for now, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.